Today, this time it's going to work. Grandma Ginny is going to read some stories. I've chosen one to read to my baby grandson. It's called Bad Kitty Does Not Like Snow by Nick Bruel. The other story is in The Young Patriots by Marcella Fisher-Anderson and Elizabeth Weiss Vollstadt. I'll be reading one story from there for my older grandson in just a minute. Okay. Bad Kitty Does Not Like Snow. It is snowing. See the kitty looking out the window at the snow? Kitty has never seen snow. Kitty does not know what snow is. He looks pretty confused to me. So Kitty asks the computer, "What is snow?" The computer tells Kitty snow is cold, snow is wet, snow is slippery, snow is soft. Those are good description of snow, aren't they? Now Kitty is ready for the snow. He's got a hat and a scarf, so he's ready. The snow is cold. The snow is wet. What a discovery. The snow is slippery. Look how he fell down. The snow is soft. He's completely sunk into it. Ugh, it's so soft. Look at all that snow. It's everywhere. Meow. The kitty doesn't look very happy to me. Kitty's very not happy. Look, his fur is all sticking out. His little feet are running fast. The computer is wrong. He got into the house. He's very upset. He's shaking. He says, "Snow is very soft. Snow is very slippery. Snow is very wet. And snow is very, very, very cold." He's really mad at the computer. Did the computer lie to him? Left out all the words named very. He killed the computer. Okay. Kitty does not like computers. Kitty does not like snow. How many blankets is he hiding under? I see him peeking out. He's not happy. He's cold. He wants to get warmed up now. That's the end of the story. Oh, he's got a bag of hot water on his head, and he's got a thermostat in his mouth, or a thermometer. He really thinks, oh, this has made me feel terrible. Okay, that's all about Bad Kitty Does Not Like Snow by Nick Bruel. I like that story. Okay, for my older grandson, I have from The Young Patriots, Inspiring Stories of the American Revolution by Marcella Fisher-Anderson and Elizabeth Weiss Vollstadt. I put a marker in here, and I think I put it at the end of the story instead of at the beginning. I did, because I chose Polly and the Boston Tea Party. Guess what? There's hardly any pictures in here because this is a big kid's book. By Elizabeth Weiss Vollstadt. As the year 1773 drew to a close, Boston Patriots faced a dilemma. Although most of the taxes under the Townshend Acts had been repealed in 1770, A small tax remained on tea. For a few years no one paid much attention, and many colonists avoided the tax altogether by purchasing tea smuggled in from Holland and the Dutch West Indies. The British government, however, was not happy that the colonists were buying smuggled tea. The East India Company of London, which dominated Britain's tea trade, was slowly sliding into bankruptcy. To save the company, the government passed the Act of 1773. The law required that the colonists buy tea only from the East India Company and only through selected merchants to ensure that the tax was paid. Opposition to the tea tax began to mount. In December 1773, 3 tea ships, the Dartmouth, Eleanor, and Beaver, were docked at Griffin's Wharf in Boston. The colonists refused to let the tea be unloaded. The royal governor of Massachusetts, Thomas Hutchinson, refused to let the ships return to London. Things could have stayed that way for a long time, except that the law also said that the cargo had to be unloaded and taxes paid within 20 days. If not, the cargo could be seized by customs officials and the duties paid. The deadline was December 17th. Determined to keep the tea from being unloaded, the Patriots took action on the night of December 16th, 1773, and held a tea party like no other. Polly Chandler listened to her father and brother talk about the tea ships. Christmas, 1773, was almost here, but it seemed as if no one in Boston could think of anything but tea. "I don't understand," she said. "Why can't we just pay the tax? It's really not that much." "True enough," answered her brother, Thomas, "but it's not the amount that matters." His brown eyes opened wider as he leaned forward to explain. Thomas was 15, 2 years older than Polly, and he liked to think of himself as a man. "You see, Polly, if we voted on the tea tax, no one would mind paying. But the king is trying to tax us without our consent. Well, we're going to teach those redcoats a lesson after tonight." "That's enough, Thomas," Mr. Chandler interrupted. "There's no need to start worrying your mother." But Polly could see that it was too late. Her mother had already turned from the fire, where she was ladling soup into the big serving dish. "What about tonight? What's going to happen?" Mrs. Chandler asked. With an angry look at Thomas, Mr. Chandler started to explain. Now there's a little explanation in here for the readers. Redcoats, a name the colonists gave to the British regulars because of the red uniforms they wore. Another, more insulting name was lobsterbacks. Did you know that when we want to be enemies with people, a lot of times we make up names for them instead of sticking to who they really are? Okay, on with the story. The governor insists that the tea be unloaded and the tax paid. If Samuel Adams can't persuade him to change his mind, we'll have to do something. That tea must not land on American soil. Suddenly there was a loud knock on the door. Before anyone could get up, it was flung open and quickly shut again. A tall man whom Polly had never seen before anxiously looked around. "Excuse me for barging in like this," he said, with a nod at Mrs. Chandler, "but there's no time to waste." He turned to Polly's father and pulled a bundle of papers from under his large gray overcoat. Samuel Adams was afraid that after tonight his house might be searched, so he asked me to find a safe place for these papers. No one knows that you and Thomas are involved with us. Can we leave them here? Polly saw her father hesitate. "For a short time," he finally said. I don't want trouble for my family." "Of course," said the stranger. "But for now, take care that they're all well hidden. If these papers are found, the lives of many patriots will be in danger." He turned to leave, then he paused. Will we see you and Thomas at the meeting this afternoon?" Mr. Chandler nodded, and their strange visitor opened the door. He quickly looked up and down the street before slipping out. Polly ran to her father, almost dancing with excitement. "Can I come with you, please? I know that something is going to happen, and I want to be there too." "No," said Mr. Chandler. "A public meeting of this nature is no place for young ladies." His voice softened, and he put his arm around her. "Besides, don't you have that new dress to finish for Christmas?" Polly glared at her sewing basket. "Who cares about an old dress? I want to go with you and Thomas." But her father was firm. He and Thomas left without her. "It's not fair. It's just not fair," exclaimed Polly, kicking her sewing basket. "Maybe it's not," her mother said kindly. "But let's do what we can to help here." She picked up the bundle of papers and looked around the room. "Now, where can we put—" Before she could finish, there was a heavy pounding on the door. "Open up in the name of the king," shouted a man's voice. "This is Captain Smith, and I have orders to search this house for evidence of treason." Mrs. Chandler clutched the papers to herself and froze. Polly looked at her mother and knew something had to be done. But what? Then she noticed her sewing basket. Maybe it could be useful after all. She ran to her mother and grabbed the bundle. "Quick, answer the door before he thinks something is wrong." She raced back to her sewing basket and pulled out her new green dress. Then she stuffed the papers in the basket and pushed it over to the chair by the fire. By the time her mother had the door open, Polly was calmly sitting by the fire, mending a pair of socks. She looked as if she had been there for hours. Her wide skirt was draped over the sewing basket, which was bursting with breeches and stockings, and was topped off by her half-finished dress. "Good afternoon," said the soldier, his red uniform announcing his importance. "We've heard that you're hiding information about those who oppose the king." "I don't know what you're talking about," said Polly's mother. "There's no one here but my daughter and me, and we're not hiding anything." The soldier opened cupboards, looked in the pantry, and turned over the big black pot that was sitting next to the fireplace. He even went up the wooden stairs, and Polly could hear him opening the wardrobe doors. "Are you quite finished?" asked Mrs. Chandler when the soldier returned empty-handed. "Now will you go and leave us in peace?" The captain looked around the room. Then he looked hard at Polly. "Get up a minute, young lady. What might you be hiding with your long skirt?" Polly's heart started to pound, but she stood up and even managed to smile. "Only my sewing basket," she said. "It's full of mending. See?" She reached in and pulled out a pair of Thomas's breeches with a hole in the knee. "And here is a new dress for me. Would you like to see it?" She started to pick up the dress, but the officer had already turned away. "I'm sorry to have bothered you," he said to Mrs. Chandler. "Perhaps we were given the wrong information this time." He bowed stiffly and left. When she could no longer hear his footsteps on the cobblestones, Polly ran over to the door and bolted it. Then she hugged her mother, who hadn't moved. "We did it!" she exclaimed. "We fooled the redcoat." A few hours later, she was hugging her father just as hard. After hearing about the afternoon's adventure, he said, "What a cool head you have, Polly. A lot of men will be very grateful to you and your sewing basket. I cannot bring you to the meeting this evening, but if events go as we fear, I will be back for you. You deserve to see what happens to the tea." Polly's thoughts raced as she waited. What was happening at the meeting? Would her father come for her? Finally, the door burst open. "Come quickly, Polly," her father said. "The governor has refused our plea to return the tea to England. We are taking action." The narrow streets of Boston grew more crowded as they drew near the harbor. Polly's father pushed forward until they reached Griffin's Wharf. "Look, over there," someone shouted. Polly turned to see a group of men dressed as Indians board the tea ships. "There's Thomas," she said, recognizing her brother despite the Indian paint on his face. "Shh," cautioned her father. "No one must ever know who the Indians are." Remembering the British officer who searched their house, Polly nodded and stood quietly with the crowd as the Indians dumped the tea into the harbor. They worked quickly, and in a few hours the task was over. But as she walked home, between her father and brother, Polly somehow knew that this was just the beginning, and thanks to her sewing basket, she would be part of whatever followed. That's the end of the story, but then it has a little bit of information afterwards. Did you know that during colonial times, government officials, including the occupying British troops, had the right to search people's homes at any time? This practice of search and seizure was so distasteful to the colonists that the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, part of the Bill of Rights, states that no one can enter a person's home without a legal paper called a warrant. Do you wonder who the Indians who took part in the Boston Tea Party really were? They were young men like Polly's brother. Many were apprentices bound out to tradesmen to work and learn their trade. They were chosen to dump the tea because they would not be recognized. Only a few Patriot leaders, including Paul Revere, went along to make sure the protest didn't turn into a riot. That's the end of the story about the Boston Tea Party. I'm sure that everyone hearing this story has some interesting opinions. I would love to see the opinions typed into the comment section below, and I hope you come back again. Thank you for watching. Reading is a really wonderful thing. Grandma Ginny loves reading. Okay? Take care. Bye-bye.